They are one of the most endangered habitats on Earth when it comes to climate change.
But help is on the way. I'm Dr. M. Sanjayan. Join us as we find ways to preserve our changing planet.
We have the building blocks to rebuild that reef.
To see science in action, absolutely amazing. Hi, Jeff.
Hello, Doctor. Good morning. Thank you for joining me.
Good morning. I love your background.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for joining me talking about Changing Planet, the Coral Special, streaming on PBS and on the PBS app. You know, it's been known for years that the coral reefs are dying and the temperatures are rising. And also the coral reefs are kind of like the barometer of the ocean, the health of the ocean and the planet. Are we at a tipping point now?
You know, I think absolutely at the tipping point, certainly for oceans and certainly for coral reef. This year is a record heat wave in the oceans around the world. And so we're recording temperatures in the ocean that are, you know, warmer than your bathwater. And they're almost uncomfortable to, frankly, to be in for too long. Like when you go and swim in some of these oceans right now, your exertion itself makes you feel too warm to be in there. And that kind of temperature absolutely causes mass bleaching of coral and then eventual death. So what we're seeing this year in particular is sort of off the charts.
And Florida has the third largest reef. 98% of its coral is gone. Is that even possible?
Yeah, it is possible. I mean, look, Florida has been, you know, inhabited and built up and lots of pollution going in. It's in a very, very tricky place for coral generally. And yet most of it is gone and degraded. There's still coral there. And when we go there, we still think it's amazing, but you can only imagine what it must have actually looked like even just 50 years ago. Now, the good news is there are people, particularly in Miami, Florida, but around the world, who are doing some amazing things of trying to put back reefs, trying to sort of help give them a helping hand. The problem with that is that most of these things that people try and do don't really work at scale. So they'll work for a small little reef right in front of your hotel, but they really won't work for a whole atoll or a whole barrier reef. And now we're starting to see some techniques that could potentially scale to really large sizes. And that, to me, is sort of the bit of hope that you will see in this special.
Well, ever since I was a kid, you know, Jacques Cousteau, you know, I grew up with him and I've been an environmentalist and I've always been aware of my environment and trying to help the earth. And the Great Barrier Reef has always been front and center as a fascination. How's the health of the Great Barrier Reef in Australia?
Well, the Great Barrier Reef has had lots of challenges in the last 3 decades, sort of wave after wave. You know, there was an invasive species. There's a lot of pollution and runoff that comes from ag that's happening right there, and then the rising of the temperatures. Now, that said, because it's a very large reef, parts of it are still buffered from it to some extent. So I haven't given up hope in the Great Barrier Reef by any stretch of the imagination, but it is going to require, you know, more than just you know, first aid. It's going to require real consistent effort by the Australian government, but also by the rest of the planet to make sure that ocean temperatures don't keep going higher. Because at the end of the day, if they just keep edging up higher and higher and higher, there's almost nothing you can do. Yes, some species of coral that you find perhaps in the Red Sea or perhaps off the coast of Indonesia are more tolerant of high temperatures, but there is an absolute upper limit. Just like there's an upper limit, you know, I think you're in Las Vegas, and there are some days when it's pretty close to impossible to be outside as a human. That's because there's just an upper limit for humans, and the same is true for coral.
Absolutely. And is it true that all ocean life lives near the coast and near these reefs? The open ocean doesn't have sea life. It all exists a few miles, 100 miles off the coast, doesn't it?
The majority of the diversity of life is right on the coast, and the most diverse places on the planet tend to be coral reefs. So we think that one particular system off the coast of Indonesia called the Bird's Head Seascape, or Raja Ampat, the Four Kings, is supposed to have the highest diversity of life. So you're seeing more species of coral and sponges and fish and plants and, you know, sea slugs and squid and octopus and all of that good stuff in a square kilometer than any other system on planet Earth, including tropical rainforests. Now, that said, of course, the open ocean still has very large pelagic fish that are hugely important for humans. So when you go, sort of big industrial fishing takes place in the open seas. However, many of those fish still rely on those coral systems or the coastal systems for breeding. So you lose coral reefs, you're also losing, sort of the larger animals that live in the open ocean. And then you're also making all those coastline communities far more susceptible to sea level rise, storms, erosion, typhoons, hurricanes, etc.
So what can the average viewer do? Is there a call to action, or is there anything that the viewer can help?
Look, the average viewer actually on this one can do quite a lot, right? So plastic pollution definitely hurts all marine life. So being very mindful about recycling and what you're using in terms of single-use plastic in particular. Thinking about coastal, like if you're living in coastal communities or agricultural communities, that coastal runoff. Look, I live in Virginia and we have the Potomac River here. It's a storied river that's been part of American sort of history since our very beginning. And you cannot imagine how much pollution still goes into Potomac. It's almost not safe. Well, I know it's not safe to swim in right here through Washington, D.C. And that's going into the ocean. Like every single one of our rivers is going into the ocean for the most part. And so you just have to really push municipalities to clean up what's going into those rivers. If you live in a community where you can swim in the river safely, that's probably a good indication for coral reefs. Be mindful about what kind of fish you eat. Make sure they're sustainably harvested, of course. And then the biggest thing, of course, is that we all need to play a part in climate change, because at the end of the day, if we don't reduce emissions, you're going to continue to see rising temperatures in the ocean.
Well, Doctor, thank you for your dedication. Thank you for sounding the alarm and educating us. And I've watched the special, and it's amazing watching you travel the world. And I appreciate your time, and let's talk again soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.